Hello, I've missed you. Happy New Year. I'm so grateful to you for waiting for me. This has taken me quite a while to film. In fact, I did film this and then it was out of focus and it was all for nothing. And it's just been such a challenge to find a day in which, or even honestly, a half hour in which I'm not looking like a zombie because I'm completely just destroyed from sleep deprivation. It has taken a while just because I haven't pretty much slept since Christmas. I haven't slept more than an hour or something since Christmas, which is normal with a newborn. But anyway, let me start from the beginning. The birth went really well and it's a really positive story. So I hope you might enjoy hearing some of the details. So let's begin. The week before Christmas, I was feeling so good, so strong, so euphoric because it's just really exciting to me, the idea that you don't know when it's going to come and the idea that it's such a challenge. It's a physical, mental, emotional challenge. I had no apprehension about the labor, the birth. I intended to do a natural birth without an epidural. It's in my nature. I get really excited about challenges, right? And I loved the fact that this pregnancy I'd felt really healthy, just like the last one too. But I suppose this one I also added in weights training as well as walking and swimming and things like that. And I was feeling so strong. And usually in the third trimester, you expect to feel so heavy and lethargic and in pain. And I didn't have any of that. I just want to add, if you are pregnant right now, or if you've been through a traumatic pregnancy and you're thinking, oh gosh, this is not my experience, it's truly just luck of the draw sometimes to a certain extent. You can obviously try to nourish your body and you can try to be active if that's what you desire. But for example, in the last pregnancy, the last month, I had placenta previa, which meant that I was advised not to do exercise in the last month. So I'm not here advocating that everyone should be able to be full of energy and moving, and it's just down to how your body responds to pregnancy. And I was very lucky in that my body responded really well and I was able to eat whatever I wanted and eat really nourishing, wholesome foods. So I felt great. And as some of you know, who if you've been following my last 9-10 months. I also introduced strength training, was working with weights, and I felt great. I was doing sort of working out every couple of days, and I just felt wonderful. And I just did a lot of dancing. I found that dancing was a great release. It's something that just moves your body, but not too much stress. And more than anything, it's also just freeing your mind and releasing any anxiety. And I think that for me, I remember dancing before Gianfranco was born, and also in the weeks just before before this birth. Before I would start my workout, I would put the music on, and I just felt so joyful. And I think that that is so important. They say obviously with a baby coming, you want to be free from anxiety, and that's easy easy to say, but obviously there are so many things going on. It's not like I had a completely stress-free month. December was quite hectic, and I had some other conflict going on in other parts of my life. So it wasn't like I was just completely blissed out. But in those mornings when I would work out, I just really just connected to my body and was connecting with that little baby inside my very large tummy, because it was so big. And when I went places like out to the supermarket or out to the village near here, people would say, "Oh, you're having twins," and all those comments that you get when you're carrying quite big, which I was. But I didn't feel the burden. I didn't feel the weight of it. I think because I'd been doing so much strength training, my legs were really strong, my arms felt really strong, and I just in general I felt very comfortable with my body literally up until the last day. We decided at the last minute to change Christmas. We thought, let's bring Christmas forward. So we had Christmas a few days before the 25th, just in case, because I had no signs. I thought, you can lose your mucus plug, you can have Braxton Hicks, you can have real contractions or something, but I had none of that. I didn't have the dropping. I didn't have like the feeling that it was, my tummy had gone down and he was getting ready to join us, because I was cooking so much for Christmas, and I was really looking forward to having a beautiful Christmas experience with Gianfranco, who last year is so much bigger now. He's 2 years and 2 months, so he was so much more engaged with Christmas, and I wanted for him to be able to have a good Christmas. In the end, we could have stayed with Guido's parents, who live in Florence and right near the hospital. That would have been the smart choice, but this just now it feels like our home, even though we have the little apartment where some of you saw me film many years ago, that's a part of their property. But I just wanted to be here. My parents are here. My sister was here. Just for Gianfranco as well, it was a lot less stress to have him here, because he has his routine, and I was quite worried about how it would be with me being in the hospital and Guido being away, so both of his parents just disappearing suddenly. I just wanted to make life as familiar and comfortable for Gianfranco as possible, but this was a little bit of a risk, because that meant that we weren't close to a hospital that had a maternity ward. We have a hospital near here, but it has no maternity ward. And then the next closest hospital isn't really equipped for high-risk pregnancies, which I was kind of classed as a high-risk pregnancy, because if you don't know, last time I had a really quick, lovely natural birth. It was great. I was feeling wonderful. But then I think we don't know what happened, whether they pulled on the placenta in the wrong way or whether it just was always going to happen. But the point is, I hemorrhaged quite seriously, and I would have died because I lost 2.5 liters of blood, and then I had all these blood transfusions and everything. So because that I was at risk, they say that it often happens again. If you hemorrhage once, you're probably likely to hemorrhage again. So we just wanted to be at a hospital that was equipped to deal with that. And then we had Christmas, and then I was just feeling really great, but I had no signs that the baby was the birth was imminent, and I just thought, oh gosh, I wonder if I'm going to end up having an induction, which I wanted to avoid, or if I would have to have a cesarean, which again I wanted to avoid. But you can't control these things, and so I just thought, okay, so much about dilation or the body just relaxing into the birth is about how the mother feels emotionally, and I really just concentrated in that last month on connecting with myself and trusting myself. And I particularly did it because Guido and I had been fighting a bit, and I had in my head also all these stories of all these awful stories that have happened in Italy, but also in other parts of the world where women just weren't believed when they were at different times during their labor. And then obviously the sort of trauma that I had with the last hospital. I tried to really focus on telling myself that, look, you can do this, Kylie, and at the end of the day, as with many things in life, it's just down to you, and you have to be strong enough to rely on yourself and not freak out and think, oh, but what if I don't have this person to help, or what if I don't have the right doctor? And I just wanted to get to a stage, which I think I got to, where I felt like no matter what happens, even if I have to give birth on the side of the road, or even if I get a horrible team at the hospital, I trust myself and I trust my body, and I know that a woman's body is meant to do this, and if you can manage it, that the body doesn't need help or interventions. It just needs the woman to trust herself and listen to her intuition, and I felt really empowered by that. I felt really strong about it, because I just kept saying, you've done everything you can at this point. I've nourished it with the good food, and I was sleeping so well, and I was training literally as though it were for an Olympic event, and I felt really excited. And do you remember last pregnancy, I kind of joked and said, oh, I think about the birthday as being Christmas Day, because it's like you get to open the best present ever. And I felt like that again, in spite of knowing what the pain was like, because there was pain with the first birth, and it's like the type of pain that's the worst you've ever felt. And then I was also vomiting, because when the uterus is just sort of trying so hard to move this baby down, it can in some women it creates the need to vomit, and that's what I had. So I was like, you can handle it, you can handle contractions, vomiting, because that is all normal and natural. So it was Christmas Eve, and I'd made ragu with tagliatelle with my parents. My sister was over from Mallorca, Guido, Gianfranco, and then we had some dessert, and then I gave Gianfranco a bath and read him a story, and then Guido went to lie with him to put him to bed, because one of us lies with him in the dark and just until he falls asleep. And so while Guido was with Gianfranco, lying in the bed, I went downstairs to choose a movie, because I thought, oh, let's watch a film. My parents and my sister had gone to bed, and I thought, let's stay up and watch a film. So I was down choosing a film, and there was the candles lit and the fireplace and the Christmas lights of the Christmas tree, and I was feeling really calm. And then I thought, oh my gosh, is that my water breaking? Like water's breaking? I don't know. In Italian, it's plural, waters. Is it waters or water? I think it was waters. And this is the moment that you always see in films. No, it's like the woman's waters breaking, and it hadn't happened with my first pregnancy, so I kind of thought it might be the same. And I was just all alone, and I just had this tingling feeling. I was like, oh, this is it. This is happening, and I was so excited. A little bit nervous, because obviously we had the challenge of racing to the hospital, because we'd chosen to stay here, which is in the countryside at the farmhouse, which is like 2.5 hours from the hospital. So anyway, I started walking upstairs. I called my mother on the way up, and I said, can you come down to finish putting Gianfranco to bed? And then I went into Guido and in the dark, and I said, amore, si sono rotte le acque, my waters are broken. He's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And even though it had never happened to me before, I was sure. It was definite that. And I felt then just this nervous excitement, because we weren't that ready. I mean, I had a hospital bag, but I don't know. We just weren't expecting it, because I thought I would have other signs before getting to that moment, and so I just raced around, and obviously the priority was to get in the car. So there were lots of things that I would have wanted to have grabbed or packed, but the priority was just, let's get in the car and let's get on the road. So we get in the car, and I put a towel on my seat, just in case. You don't know, because once your waters are broken, you think, well, are we going to be one of those couples that are just like giving birth on the side of the road, and then on Christmas Eve, when there's just sort of not really anyone around? Okay, so it is New Year's Eve.
it's not New Year's Eve.
Oh no, it's not New Year's Eve, it's Christmas Eve. And my waters just broke and we are rushing to the hospital, which is 2 hours away. And I don't have any contractions, so maybe this is not it, but it's certainly the start, I think. Yay.
So it's like 10:30, 11 p.m. at night, and we are racing. If any of you know Guido, I mean, when Brian and Gareth, came over from Australia and we were driving just to the port one time to catch a ferry with Guido, they were like holding on for dear life because he said, "Oh my gosh, your husband drives so fast." He's Italian, but in this case, he didn't drive as fast as he normally does because we said the last thing we need is to have an accident on Christmas Eve while I'm in labor. And so he was driving, let's say, just a little bit over the speed limit, but not as fast as I thought he would. And Guido was quite, let's say, I was feeling a little bit more relaxed because I didn't have contractions at that stage. So I felt like it was manageable. But still, we were just a little bit worried. Like we were like, are we doing the right thing? So we called the hospital where we were planning to go to in Florence. And we called several times and no one answered. I guess maybe they were understaffed for Christmas Eve, or I don't know. They didn't respond. And we were calling like specifically the maternity ward and then the main line. No one responded. So because we wanted to ask their advice of should we go to a closer hospital or should we try and make it to the one where they were ready for me. Then we called a friend of Guido's who's a doctor, who she actually delivers babies and she's very knowledgeable. And we said, what would you do? And she said, I would stop at this hospital that's sort of at the halfway point. She said, because if your waters have broken, then you risk infection, or the baby could be coming momentarily and you don't know. It's too much for you to arrive at Florence. And we were like, yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much for the advice. And so we were about to have that turn off to go to that other hospital, which is a bit of a small hospital, and we'd heard some bad things about it. So we were a little bit reticent. And Guido's like, what do you think? Do you think we should go? And I said, honestly, you make the choice, because I don't know, I can't make it. It's so hard. I don't want to put the baby's life or my life at risk, but at the same time, the idea of being at a really big hospital that's more equipped and everything, that was a lot more inviting. And at that point, the car started having problems and the gears weren't working. And Guido was like, I don't know if we stop here just to have a check at the halfway point and then we want to go on to Florence. He said, I don't know if the car will start again. And I was like, okay, let's just gun it. Let's go for Florence and we can do this. I said, I feel confident. I feel relaxed. Let's just go against the doctor's advice. And Guido's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And so we just saw that turn off just come and go. And at that point, I'm just thinking, let's hope for a Christmas miracle and not have to regret this decision and be giving birth on the side of the road. But even then, I maybe it sounds naive or overly optimistic, but I truly did think, look, if I have to give birth to this baby in the car or just on the side of the road, I feel ready. I feel like I can do it. Obviously, I couldn't have dealt with the hemorrhaging, but I don't know. We're not so isolated that an ambulance couldn't find us. So, yeah, I felt confident. Meanwhile, Guido's car, he had just had it serviced at the mechanic before, in the weeks before, knowing that we were going to have to potentially do this speed run to the hospital. And yet, for some reason, it started having all Guido's like moving the gears, and nothing is working. And I said to him, "More, is everything okay?" And I just remember hearing him say, "Everything is not okay." And I, at that point, I didn't I didn't feel worried. I don't know why, but it seemed like I just felt like we were going to get there. He's a very good driver, Guido, and I thought, okay, even if the car starts breaking apart as we're going, I'm sure Guido will be able to manage this car and maneuver it somehow. But then at a certain point, we got stuck behind a learner's learner driver, so with a big P for principiante. And I don't know what they were doing driving at 11 p.m. On Christmas Eve, so slow. And Guido is beeping and flashing his lights and waving the little tissue, because if you wave like a white hanky, it's like a sign for SOS, it's a sign for saying, sorry, we need to come through. But they were not looking, or obviously as a learner, they're just driving along there as slowly as possible. Guido, as you can imagine, is getting super colorful in cursing in Florentine at the fact that we are going now slower than the speed limit, and we are just running out of time, and we're trying to get to the hospital before the car breaks down. And then we get almost to the hospital and the motor just cuts out. And I just looked at Guido and I said, Amore, shall I just get out and walk? Should I just get out? I said, I think I can walk. I'm fine. I don't have any pain. And he's like, no, aspetta. He's like, wait. The motor has never cut out before, never. And it just, I don't know. It feels like Guido thinks it was fate, because he said if the car hadn't had this trouble, we probably would have stopped at that halfway point at the other hospital. And then since then we've heard horrible things about that hospital and how the staff are really awful. So I don't know, maybe it was destined. It was like we had to have those troubles to give us that push, to that incentive to try and make it to our ideal hospital. Anyway, so then the car starts up again. We get to the hospital only just because the gears are still not working, and Guido's still trying to work out what is happening with the car. But anyway, we get there and I just get out and I say, I'll just rush ahead, and I'll just go to the emergency, because we were at the emergency entry. And I just said, hi. And then I was all the adrenaline of getting there, and then I arrived and I just said, hi, I'm and I'm out to here with my tummy, and I said, my waters have just broken and I'm pregnant, and I was wondering what to do. And they said, yeah, quick, come. I was rushed up to the maternity ward, and they were all like, oh my gosh, you siete stati coraggiosi, you were so brave in coming to this far, like with your waters broken. But I feel like it wasn't that crazy, because it's not like I was in pain during the car trip. But anyway, they sort of got me all, put the thing around my tummy to monitor the heartbeat and everything, and asked me if they could check me. And they said, it's like, oh, ti possiamo visitare, which is what they say in Italian. And just the fact that it was phrased as a question, like, would you mind if we check you? I got just tears in my eyes, and I felt so emotional, just because it was such relief. It was like that. It's what I'd been wondering this whole time, just the whole 9 months of the pregnancy. Am I going to get a bunch of horrible women like last time? And just the fact that they'd asked me, because the last time when they checked me, she was so aggressive and she just ripped my legs apart, and she was just very, not nice. And this time, just the fact that they phrased it as a question, and they said, brava, you so so great, just walking around, and because my contractions had started at that point. And I said to them, oh my gosh, you have no idea how relieved I am that you guys are so kind. And they said, what do you mean kind? We just asked if we could check you. It's not it's normale. They said it's normal. And then I recounted to them what had happened at the other place and at the other hospital, and they just said, look, don't worry, that's not going to happen here. And it makes me cry just thinking about it, because it was just such a relief. And I thought, gosh, I was prepared to be able to have done this on my own, just blocking out everyone else. And I'd been focusing on that. I've been focusing on how to isolate myself mentally and just ignore any sort of abuse or whatever, or just whatever, being left alone or something. I thought I could do this on my own, but to then have them be kind was an added bonus, and I felt so lucky. And then they took me to the point where Guido was allowed in, which was great. He was allowed there, but at that point he had to go and move the car because he had just parked right outside the emergency, because the car that was only where he could get it to. And then there was this nurse or OB, Sarah, and she came up and she said, "Oh, would you like me to just put some pressure on your back?" And again, I was so shocked. I was like, "Oh, this is a dream." It was just a dream to have someone be kind, but then also to assist you during the contractions, which was so strong. They came on really quickly, and they just went like from 0 to 100 in a matter of 15 minutes or something. And so I was just breathing, and she held put some pressure on my lower back, and I was so grateful. She was so lovely, and she said in Italian, she said, I know that fa un male cane, like it hurts like hell. Basically, it means it literally hurts like a dog, but it means it hurts like hell. And it was so reassuring just to have someone validate your pain or the struggle, because it's the opposite of last time I'd had that woman put her hand on my stomach and then said, "You're faking it, you're not having real contractions," which was so difficult to just have to fight to not only manage the pain, but then also fight to even be believed. And instead, this time, this woman was just saying to me, "Yeah, it hurts like hell. Bravissima, well done. You're breathing so well." And I was just walking continually, and just I was like basically almost sprinting around the hospital to keep all the momentum going. And this nurse, she rang the other department, I guess, and she said, "I think this baby is going to come very quickly." And she said to me, "You seem like you've got this." And I said, yeah, I have, and I'm excited. And at that point I went into the bathroom and just filmed a little thing on my phone. This is it. It's happening. I'm so excited. We made it to the hospital, and I feel amazing. I didn't want to bring cameras because for me it's just very intimate to film myself giving birth. I love watching those videos. I find them really reassuring, and they're so educational for women like me who are just wanting to see like how different births can go, and what could potentially happen, or different positions that work for different women. But for me personally, I just wanted to really just focus on the task at hand, and Guido's not so adept at using the cameras, and so yeah, I didn't bring any cameras into the room, but I had my phone, and I wanted to capture a little moment, just also to remember for myself what it felt like, because sometimes it can be all a bit of a blur once it's all over. And yeah, when we went to the room, I was adamant that I remember last time, because I basically gave birth to Gianfranco sort of squatting and holding on to the bed, with Guido kind of holding me on my back behind. And this is what I trained for. This truly, it's not about like losing baby weight or trying not to put on too much weight during the pregnancy. For me, the training that I did, the exercise, was all about being as strong as possible for this moment, for being in the best position for birthing this child without tearing and without any intervention. And so I was just on my feet basically all the time, and then on my knees. And then I asked if they could bring me in a peanut bowl, I think it's called, and I actually I ended up on my knees and then doing like a push-up, if you can imagine, like holding myself up on the peanut bowl. And And so I was holding myself up, and the nurses were worried. They said, "Oh, you're going to get too tired just supporting yourself up on your arms like that." But I had been training, so I was not tired. My legs weren't shaking. I felt super strong, and I was just on my knees. And I just thought, yeah, this is because I, read that with gravity, then it sort of helps you if you're not on your back. And also, I wanted to. I'd sort of read about the, you see all in the movies that they always have their legs wide apart and their knees up, but that's the opposite of what the pelvis needs to open up. So it's like if this is my knees, if you open your legs, the pelvis closes, but if you put your knees together, the pelvis opens. And so I was doing that, remembering that those images that I'd seen and that I'd read in this article, and it felt great. I could feel the baby just coming down and breathing. And when I say great, obviously it hurt like hell, but I did feel that it was progressing really gently and steadily, and then I just ended up. The whole labor happened very quickly, and in a couple of hours, I think it was, or maybe it was just even 1 hour, since it was from when a couple of hours in total, but 1 hour from when I went into the to the actual operating room. So I was basically on my hands and knees, and the baby just came down, and then I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear that cry, that first newborn cry that you're waiting for, because I couldn't see anything, so I'm just waiting to hear. And I said, "Is it alive? Is it alive?" And they cut the cord quickly, whisked it away, because he wasn't breathing. And they said that this is what happens sometimes when the birth is really quick, like the baby is in shock and it doesn't have even time to get the lungs working fast enough. This man, whoever it was, whisked the baby away. He obviously resuscitated it or something, and then brought him back in and put him on my chest. And I was just so exhausted, because it was even though most women are laboring for much longer and must be so much more tired than I was, but I still felt just completely distrutta, destroyed, as you say in Italian. But I didn't tear at all. I felt really strong. I didn't, I didn't cry. I didn't feel any kind of, I didn't feel at any moment like, oh no, you can't do this. And then he was just on my chest and latched on really quickly and started, feeding immediately. And it felt great. And then I was just waiting, though, because I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is the point that I would be hemorrhaging. So they were all very nervous about that. And so then I birthed the placenta, and that seemed to go okay. And the doctor checked, and she said, amazing, this was an amazing birth. And so we decided to call the baby Raffaello. I don't know if you're familiar with the Italian Renaissance painter Raffaello, who's done some beautiful paintings. And I liked it because it feels to me like it's got the R, which is strong and masculine, and the Ello, which feels very soft and gentle. And I believe that also its meaning is a healer originally. And we were undecided up until the last moment. In the hospital for 3 days, on his little card, on his little bracelet was just written maschio, which means male, because we couldn't decide. And we went to this little office where you have to go and sign all the documents and officially write what his name will be and get his social security number and everything. And the woman there was so funny. She was like, okay, let's parliamone ragazzi, let's talk about it, guys. And we came and we said, we can't decide on a name for this child. And she said, okay, let's think. And and we had some other names, other suggestions. And she said, oh, if I was in class class and I heard that name, she said, I'd definitely be flirting with that guy. That sounds like a very, very attractive name. And oh, she said, oh, that's sexy. And this is like a woman in her, I don't know, I think late 60s or something. And she was so kind and so lovely. And I was just so sleep deprived. I said to Guido, I can't even make my brain work. And of course we'd had 9 months to think about it, but we just never had a name that we had, that we both really just loved. Guido was like calling different friends.
La signora ci sta dicendo come si chiama? Che dici te?
Ti piace solo perché sembra una persona che riesce a mangiare tanto?
Gualtiero mangia tanto.
Tanta salsiccia.
Sì. Raffaello, non Raffaele, Raffaello. È più delicato Raffaello, magari potrebbe venire anche vegetariano, dici. Ti richiamo, scusa, siamo un attimo occupati.
I think part of me also wanted to meet him and sort of get a sense of his soul and his personality and see what felt right, and Raffaello felt right to both of us. So then it's Christmas morning and I just felt completely depleted of all energy. I think it hits you then after all the drama and adrenaline and excitement of the birth, and you finally get him and you know that he's healthy and the danger is over. Then I just suddenly was hit by this just wave of exhaustion, and all I wanted to do was close my eyes. And Guido was in the chair beside me, but he was just falling asleep. He was like, I could see his head going like this, and it's not an ideal situation because they don't, that first sort of hour afterwards they let him stay, but after that no partner or family member is allowed to stay outside of the visiting hours or particularly overnight. It seems crazy because I know in other countries the partner at least, or if not also maybe other family members or a doula or something, is allowed to stay overnight to lend a helping hand to the mother who has just sort of gone through this incredibly intense, exhausting experience. But in Italy, it's not allowed. It feels a little bit cruel because what happened then was that I got progressively more and more tired, and Raffaello started crying. And at that point, even though I didn't have any tearing, but still, your uterus is sore, and also because once you start breastfeeding, you get these contractions, which they say get worse so that every pregnancy you have, and so they were quite strong, like more contractions, and I just didn't feel ready to walk at all. But you kind of like you go through all of this. Labor is so painful, and then you've got like a baby biting down on your nipples, and it's like they're like bleeding, and on top of all of that, then you've got to stay awake, sort of like you're in some kind of cruel endurance test. And it would just be so helpful if you were able to sleep for an hour or so, and during the visiting hours, obviously there's so much noise and there's so many people, perhaps, and that's why they don't want visitors to come, because they want the women to be able to rest at night. But there's got to be a better way, because it doesn't work. Like I just saw so many other women. There was one opposite from me, a Sri Lankan woman who didn't speak Italian or English, and she kept fainting every time she even sat up. And so she needed her husband there to translate or to give her some support. And then the woman beside me had a cesarean, and she was like crying because she was having so much trouble breastfeeding and it wasn't working. And just to have her husband there holding her hand or giving her some emotional support would have been so helpful. And then I was there with Raffaello, who was screaming nonstop all through the night. And then I felt bad for keeping the other mothers awake because their babies were all sleeping. And so I had to, so I had to get up and walk him, and that was the only thing that would kind of placate him a little. And I just felt so, it's like, even when you've just given birth, it's so painful to even just sort of sit up and hoist yourself off the bed. So all in all, a really positive birth and labor and everything. We were so lucky in so many ways. However, I would say that the most difficult part for me was afterwards. Those 3 nights in the hospital just felt like torture. Trying to take care of a baby when you've just given birth and you're sleep deprived and you're trying to breastfeed. And I breastfed Gianfranco for a year and a half every 2 hours, so I was really familiar with it. But of course, once you start again from the beginning, it really hurt. Like at least for a week and a half, it was like every time he was biting down to latch on, it hurt. That beginning, that first few seconds is just really painful, and then just having to hold the baby up when you're so tired. And I was having to sit up because he couldn't. Lying down was too risky because if I were to lie down, I would risk falling asleep and squashing him and suffocating him, which is what happened to a mother in a hospital in Rome a year or so ago, where she ended up accidentally killing her baby because she was breastfeeding and she was so tired she fell asleep and suffocated it. So I was super conscious of that. And in Italy, any family members are not allowed in, only the partner of the woman. So yeah, that for a start, I mean, you can't have a doula, you can't have grandparents or anyone visiting. I feel like in so many other countries, tell me what the case is in your country, whether the partners can stay over the night, because it would be such a help. I happen to have a baby who is screaming just nonstop and in pain. Because I had him just attached for 6 hours at a time. I would have him attached just to try and stimulate my milk supply and have him get as much colostrum as possible. But it was so tiring, and I just was sending messages to Guido being like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I was so strong and positive with the birth part, but after I felt really fragile and weak because I didn't feel that I had anything left, and I just thought I would say goodbye to Guido when the visiting hours were over in the late afternoon, and then I just thought I am looking ahead at like 9 hours or something, or 10, 12 hours before Guido could come back, and I thought I can't do this long. I'm about to fall asleep any second. How can I possibly keep myself awake for 12 hours? And the nurses, they can't. I mean, they can help you if you're really like in difficulty, but they can't take your baby for an hour at a time so that you can sleep for 45 minutes. The baby was screaming, and I'm trying to walk, but it's just so, you're not ready for walking like 24 hours after you've given birth, or even an hour after you've given birth. So I found the whole thing really difficult and just very, very challenging mentally. During the day, you think, okay, if Guido would come in the visiting hours, you could sleep. But during the day, all the fluorescent lights are on. There are all the people rushing in and out, and there's so much noise, and they're shouting like, oh, we've got to change this, and who's, they're bringing in different doctors and everything. So it's really hard to sleep when you're in a room with sort of 5 other women and who are constantly being checked. So I found that just impossible to sleep at that point. Although I have to say, last time, they made me fast because they had to put the balloon in me to stop the hemorrhaging, the bleeding, and then they had me not eating or drinking because they were waiting for there to be room in the operating theatre to be able to remove this balloon. And so being deprived of food for me is like the worst scenario. It really just crushed my spirit. And this time I would just live for the meals. I would think, as I was like holding the screaming baby and I was feeling like I wanted to collapse, I just thought, get through, and there's going to be breakfast or there's going to be lunch soon, and that you can eat. Hospital food, even in Italy, is terrible, or at least it is at the hospitals I've experienced. And so Guido brought me in my own little olive oil and some greens, some mixed greens like bietola and cavolo nero, and then some boiled eggs. I just wanted to get some protein into me, and yeah, it was so lovely to have some healthy. Like they offered you like a little thing of jam and a dry, some biscuits, and I just wanted to get something really nourishing into my body. When I was finally discharged, I just felt like I was getting out, and I couldn't wait, even though obviously I knew the sleep deprivation would continue, but at least, you know, with having my parents and Guido during the night, like maybe I could have a bit of support. And I just felt so excited to be home in my bed and able to eat my own food. I found myself just wanting to cook even just straight from the first day I was back. I guess probably it helps tremendously the fact that I didn't have tearing, so I was able to stand without too much, without any pain really. But for me, that's just like cooking and being able to cook what I want and eat what I was craving was definitely something that really helped me. And I had prepared some meals and frozen them just to have them ready, but it wasn't necessary. I found myself in the weeks after my birth quite capable of just standing up and cooking something quickly, and that felt really good. This is so hard. I've been breastfeeding for 6 hours straight. I can't put him down in the crib for even a second. Hey, it's okay. It's okay, man. It's okay. Shh. Oh. These first weeks have been lovely, and then also just really challenging. I had hoped that we might have a baby that slept, because we had so many problems, as some of you might remember, with Gianfranco, who had constipation and then I don't know, colic or reflux, silent reflux. Me and my sister had silent reflux as babies, and no one would believe my mother that they said, oh, silent reflux doesn't exist. And then after like weeks, they finally took me into the hospital, and they put the dye in that you could see, and they said, oh wow, like she's got all these ulcers on the inside of her throat, and that was quite difficult for my mother, because she was trying to get someone to believe that her baby had reflux. And it would appear that also Raffaello has this silent reflux, and he's like in so much pain. He'll like be just, you know, sleeping sort of peacefully for 2 minutes, and then he's just like will grimace and then be screaming for hours and hours and hours on end, and nothing can soothe him. And it's so debilitating, like just holding this little creature, because he feels so small and fragile compared to Gianfranco, and just looking at his face in so much pain and not being able to do anything. And I was feeding him a lot, but then I was trying to experiment with not feeding him so often, because obviously if it's from the reflux, then then he needs to have a break from so that he can digest the milk. And the pediatrician has said, he's putting on weight so well and he's fine. And she said, they all tell you, oh, you just have to wait and tolerate it. You just have to get through it, and there's nothing you can do. So I have found myself in these weeks feeling quite defeated, because I am just awake every night and sitting up, because he can never be put down on his back, ever. Even the doctor's saying, that with SIDS, it's so risky having, they say the worst thing is to have the baby on your chest, because you risk like the baby just falling off into your armpit or falling. Most of the deaths from SIDS happen when a parent is on a couch or an armchair and they're just trying to stay awake and sit up, and then the baby sort of falls down into in between cushions or pillows or something like that. So there's only 30 minutes between when he's calmed down and stopped crying and when his next feed is due, where you have some peace, where you have some just time where you're not walking him or nursing him. You might say about pumping, but I'm not really sure about that, because I already have a lot of milk, and pumping would sort of increase my milk supply, and then I risk mastitis or something. I sort of try to do the nights all alone. My mother has to sleep at night because she already helps so much during the day, and that's the thing. I have so much support. I have the incredible advantage of having my parents and a husband who works mostly from home. So that is so much more than most women. Most women, and so many women are just dealing. I see it on the forums, and I particularly the ones who have reflux babies. The ones who have reflux babies are they're not the ones who are writing, oh, this lovely newborn stage, I love newborns, and just, soaking up all this lovely first weeks of just, you and your little angelic baby. It's like, no. The mothers of reflux babies, or who are writing on these forums, they're not the ones filming, for example, 24 hours or my night routine with a newborn. No, there are pretty much no night routines with a reflux newborn, because those mothers can't be filming because they're going crazy. And I have just, felt so, I guess, also so discouraged sometimes, because even though the doctor will say, oh, it'll just be a couple of months until their digestive system develops, or, it will probably just be this, the first 3 months. But I know that with Gianfranco, it wasn't that way, and he didn't stop with the crying. Even after we introduced solids, it was like a year and a half of really hard work in soothing him, and only with gradually with probiotics, maybe that was what helped, or just him getting older. But fortunately, I mean, Raffaello doesn't have the constipation on top of the colic and reflux and everything, so that's something. I was sleeping well during the pregnancy, and many women don't. So I think I worked up a great bank of of sleep, and then now I'm just in the trenches, trying to make it through from hour to hour. Having a toddler in comparison for me is so much easier. Gianfranco is so much easier. He has his toddler meltdowns, and it's so much easier to deal with a child that you can communicate with, and you can say, where does it hurt, or what's wrong, or you can tell him, you can soothe him with words. But just holding a little baby who is screaming and looking up at you like, I'm in so much pain, and you can't do anything to soothe them. And we'll get through it, and I think we just have to accept that this is what it is, and be grateful that we have a baby that's healthy, because ultimately, as tiring as reflux is, as emotionally draining as it is, just hearing that constant screaming, reflux isn't a disease. It isn't something that is putting the baby at tremendous risk, or risking his health. So for that, we are really grateful, and I just, my heart just goes out to these mothers who are single mother, or who don't have any family nearby. And that's, I think, the majority. These days, people don't live near their parents. And we have definitely gone through a lot of struggle to be able to have my parents here. There's been stuff that we've all had to compromise on in order to have them be able to be here to help us. But we're also lucky, because, to even have parents that want to give up that time and be here and supporting in so many ways. So I suppose every mother has a different aspect of the pregnancy, or the first year, the postpartum, that is challenging. And there are some people who have a really wonderful supportive partner, but horrible in-laws who create all this drama, or some people who have a really terrible pregnancy, vomiting right up into the last moment, but then they have a baby that sleeps like an angel, and the postpartum is really smooth. So I think that, yeah, in one way or another, everyone has their own personal struggle. I'm hoping to keep working as I did last time, and keep creating content for you, also because it's such a pleasure for me to be creative, and it really helps me to keep my spirits up, and I just love creating, I love editing, I love cooking and documenting it all for you. I've really prioritized just trying to soothe Raffaello, and then also spending as much time as possible with Gianfranco. I do have friends who, my best friend said to me, you've just got to, that toddler becomes your husband's child and the baby becomes your child, and you just have to divide and conquer. And that does make sense, but I don't know, Gianfranco's just so sensitive. He picks up on so much. Like, I see him, he listens to all of our conversations, and he always has something to say. Like, we'll just be sort of whispering something between us, and he'll say, Mama, I can do this or this, like, it's just incredible how much he hears and absorbs and understands, and then wants to do something about it. I mean, he even said to Guido last night, Guido was in with just putting him to sleep and lying beside him, and Gianfranco could hear that Raffaello crying and with me, and he said, Babbo, go and help Mama with Raffaello. And he's saying, like, he's just 2 years old, and he's saying, go and help Mama with Raffaello, Babbo. And so Guido's like, oh, do you think, is that okay, Gianfranco? He said, sì, vai, Babbo. And it's so lovely. Like, he has such concern for everything, for everyone, and so it's great that he's not jealous. But I've been really conscientious about spending extra time with him, and I thank you for all your support, and I'm sure many of you will have tips on the reflux thing. But I don't know. I think we went through this all last time also with Gianfranco, and nothing really worked other than just time and also a lot of you, I remember last time, said, oh, can Guido help during the night? But Guido is, there are people who are, what is it they call, high sleep needs people and low sleep needs people. I have low sleep needs, and Guido definitely has high sleep needs. If he doesn't sleep, he is just terrible the next day and is grumpy and yelling at everyone, and that is not what you need after you've been awake most of the night, or you're feeling so. I would rather do the night, because anyway there's not much time. Like, by the time by the time I've finished feeding him and then burped him, and even if someone else Guido takes him to while he's crying for that hour afterwards, I don't manage to get back to sleep easily. I'm not someone who falls asleep easily, even when I'm tired. So for us, it just works out better that Guido tries to help during the day, and then I try and see if I can get in a nap during the day, which I have been able to get like an hour during the day, which is just what is working for us right now. Thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry if I wasn't as coherent as I should have been. It's still like quite a struggle to construct sentences and to try and get my mouth to articulate what's going on in my brain. Thank you very much, and I will see you alla prossima.